Hi, this is Ron with Circadian Crop Sciences, and today we're going to talk about russet mites. Russet mites are very tiny. You're not going to want to have them on your crop. They feed on, the plant material and reduce growth and cause damage. Um, and no one's going to want to eat, something that's contaminated with russet mites. There are really two kinds of russet mites that affect crops in the United States, and those are the tomato russet mite and the hemp russet mites. The tomato russet mites also hit uh, plants related to tomatoes, such as potatoes and eggplant, tomatillos, uh, those sorts of crops. The russet mites that affect hemp only affect cannabis, so there is no cross contamination between them. The russet mites, they're going to look something like this, but you're going to be looking at them through a 15 to 20 power hand lens, and you're not going to see a whole lot of detail. They're going to be very small. They're going to be clear, translucent. You probably can notice the appendages at the dorsal end, their forelegs, and you might be able to pick up details of their mouth parts, but they're going to look very clear, kind of like little maggots, and you're going to recognize them by that and by the damage that they cause. So we need to understand the life cycle of russet mites, and they have four distinct stages. These are eggs, which hatch into nymphs, which then develop into, there's two stages of nymphs, and those develop into adults. The adult females, they will lay anywhere from 9 to 57 eggs, depending on temperature. You can see when the temperature is below 8 degrees Celsius, there is no development of the eggs. Also, those eggs are not known to survive the winter. But when it warms up just a little bit, uh, just 70 degrees, a mild 70 degrees Fahrenheit, uh, those females are laying now around 29 eggs. And when it warms up even more to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, they're laying around 57 eggs. So they do have the ability to increase in numbers very rapidly. Now, once those eggs hatch out, they first hatch out into what's called a protonymph, and those molt into a deutonymph. In total, when the temperature's cool, like 52 degrees Fahrenheit, it takes about 22 days for those nymphs to develop into adults. But once it warms up, that goes down rapidly, and when it's in the low 80s, it only takes a little over 7 days to develop into an adult. And then once it jumps up into the 90s, it takes less than a week. So warm temperatures, you really need to be much more concerned about a population of russet mites getting out of control. The adult lifespan is pretty much the same regardless of temperature, so around 3 weeks, just a little bit more when it's warmer. So our goal in controlling the russet mites, main goal is to kill off the adults and nymphs and to spray frequently enough to keep newly hatched nymphs from making it to egg-laying adults. And the reason we key in on the adults and nymphs is because most sprays are not going to kill the eggs. They're very difficult to kill off. Those adult nymphal stages, on the other hand, we can kill. Now, predatory mites such as Amblyceus cucumeris, Amblyceus swerskii, and Amblyceus cucumeris, those will feed on eggs, and they'll feed on the other stages as well. So those are some beneficial mites that are a good idea to incorporate into a pest control program. And there's some predatory insects as well that probably feed on eggs and at least various stages of the russet mites, including the adults and nymphs, and such as the minute pirate bugs or the big-eyed bugs. And you can even purchase those from insectaries. They are native and they can fly into your crop as well. One thing to keep in mind is that even if you kill off 100% of the adults and nymphs, you're going to get eggs hatching out over the next 2 to 11 days, depending on the temperature. And then those are going to take another 4 to 23 days to develop into adults, depending on temperature. Now, those adult females, they're going to be laying eggs for approximately 3 weeks. When the temperature is cool, like around 52 degrees Fahrenheit, the russet mite females are laying about 3 eggs per week. When the average temperature warms to 89 or 90 degrees, those females are laying around 14 eggs per week. And those eggs hatch within 2 days, and it takes less than 5 days for those nymphs to develop into adults. So once it's warm, they can reproduce very rapidly. Also, let's keep in mind that the russet mites can get into tight places where you're not going to get the spray on them. And you may get some fuming action to be able to reach into those crevices to get an even better kill, but getting 100% kill with any strategy is going to be next to impossible. So we have pesticides that we recommend for russet mite control. And one of the reasons we recommend these pesticides is because they work well with the predatory mites. You can spray after introducing the predatory mites in the sachets that they come in, and you won't kill the mites within those sachets. So when you buy these predatory mites, they come with a grain, and in that grain is another mite that feeds on the grain, and the predatory mite that you want in your field is feeding on those grain mites. So there's a little hole in the sachet, and over the course of a couple of weeks, your beneficial mites are crawling out those holes and walking around the plants hunting for something to eat, which hopefully will be some mite eggs and mites, so of the russet mites. So the mint oil is good because it is a nerve toxin, and it works on the nervous system in 3 different ways, the different terpenes in there. And Circadian Sunrise also has raw corn oil in it. So you're getting the nerve toxin and you're getting the raw corn oil, which acts as a suffocant. The raw corn oil also has antioxidants in it that get stripped out in the manufacturing process. So, the corn oil you get at the store, all the good stuff's been taken out of it. Those antioxidants, there are 0 antioxidants in the store-bought corn oil. And the polycosanol waxes, which are very good for plants as well. One of those waxes is called tricontanol, and that all gets stripped out. So the corn oil acts as a smotherant. The antioxidants protect the plant actually from the mint oil, because the essential oils can be phytotoxic to plants. The antioxidants and waxes in our products offset the negative effects of the essential oil. So your plants actually like the pesticide spray. So, the the circadian sunrise, that would be my core product because it's so gentle on the plants. But we have a product called Long Shadow. It's 30% cinnamon oil. That's a very high percentage of an essential oil. Cinnamon oil attacks the nervous systems of insects and mites as well. It's going to be a different chemistry. So if the mite is going to develop resistance, it's probably going to be, if it develops resistance to the mint oil, it's probably not going to have resistance to the cinnamon oil. Also, the cinnamon oil tends to, or at least it seems like it is more damaging to membranes than mint oil. So in an insect, they breathe through their exoskeleton, and there's little pores in the exoskeleton that lead to a membrane. So we can destroy that membrane, break that down, and kill the insect that way. The cinnamon oil is harder on plants, so you have to use it at a lower rate. You have to be sure that you test it for phytotoxicity. We do have some antioxidants in the product, but not near as much as what is in the circadian sunrise. So, you do have to be careful with the product. Cinnamon oil can get in your eyes and would be very irritating in your eyes, and sensitive skin can burn from cinnamon oil. So, use the product cautiously, but if you do, you can get a very good kill with cinnamon oil and provide a different chemistry in there so we don't get a resistance built up to our main product, which is the circadian sunrise. Now we have another product called All-Phase, and this is primarily a fungicide and bactericide. In this product, we combine potassium sorbate with carrageenan, and carrageenan is derived from a algae that grows in the ocean. It's a natural polymer. It dries to an invisible film, and so in All-Phase, that film is infused with potassium sorbate. So that film will coat leaf surfaces. You won't even see it. It will wrap around little russet mites and coat them. It will wrap around fungal spores and coat them as well. And, we did a study where we took hemp russet mites and we excised them from leaves, and we put them on filter paper, moist filter paper on petri dishes, and we treated them with various pesticides that are on the market. And we found many of them did nothing to kill the russet mites. But we did find that the cinnamon oil kills them very quickly. The peppermint oil kills them very quickly as well. Actually, the All-Phase, we're not sure why, but it did kill them, or it killed probably 70% of them, but it took about 24 hours overnight. The controls that weren't treated were still good and healthy. But so it does look like there is some activity with potassium sorbate, but why I recommend using the potassium sorbate combined with the cinnamon oil-based pesticide or the potassium oil-based pesticide is because that polymer gets infused with the cinnamon oil, and it gets infused with the peppermint oil. And then that coats the insect or mite, and we have seen better efficacy, a better kill that way. So those are the pesticides we recommend. Now, the best thing to do is to have a preventative control program, especially, if you haven't had russet mites in the past. These are still good practices. for other pests that you might have. But you're going to want to start with a clean facility or field, and that should be pretty obvious. Remove all the debris and clean it up real well, and clean your irrigation lines. Run some bleach through them, or peroxyacetic acid or something like that, and then spray down all the surfaces with a disinfectant as well. In a greenhouse, you can shut off your exhaust fans, and you can let it heat up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit in there and leave it like that all day. Still allow it to come on if it starts to get up to 140, because there are some electronic equipment that we have to be a little worried about, that you could possibly damage it if you let it get too hot in there. But that's a good way to sterilize a greenhouse or a grow room. Your field producers, you can use cover crops, and different areas have different cover crops that work well, and most farmers know these using crop rotations and cover crops to preserve soil and break pest cycles. You can also tarp the soil with a clear plastic for a few weeks, or go all winter like that, and that can help to kill pests, not just mites, but other pests as well. And of course, we want to start with clean plants. You don't want to take plants that have russet mites already on them and distribute that through your fields or facilities. Now, if there's clones that are started from tissue culture and plants started from seeds, they should be free of russet mites, unless they're in near an area where there are russet mites, and they somehow, through the wind or whatever, got contaminated from an adjacent area. But tissue culture and from seeds should be less likely to have russet mites. If you get seeds, plant them out in your field, you're probably going to have perfectly clean plants. Now, when you start plants from cuttings, those are taken from mother plants. Those mother plants could possibly have russet mites, so your clones could have russet mites. You're going to want to make sure that any clones that you're starting or you're getting from a nursery, that you spray or dip those rooted cuttings with a solution of circadian sunrise combined with all-phase. And you can put that in a 5-gallon bucket, add the all-phase slowly to the bucket with a little whisk to prevent clumping, and the all-phase will also help do a good job to emulsify the circadian sunrise a little bit more completely. We try not to use too many detergents with the circadian sunrise, because the circadian sunrise, we want that to be a product that your plant actually likes, and the more detergents you put in things, the harsher it is on plants. So like when you're using these nano emulsions, you wouldn't believe the amount of detergent that goes into that. There's more detergent by weight in there than there is the oil or the essential oil. So this the all phase does help emulsify the circadian sunrise a little bit better, and it dries to a coating around the russet mite. So you want to do a weekly crop inspection, and for that you're going to need your 15 to 20 power hand lens. And if you want, there are articles out there on the internet that can show you pictures of russet mites and the damage that they cause. Generally, you're going to see like smaller leaves. You're going to see what is called, some people call tacoing, where you get upturned leaves, kind of cup-shaped upwards, and you can get bronzing of leaves, that sort of thing, just weaker overall growth. I recommend that you do introduce predatory mites. You can just do it with a spray program, but the predatory mites, especially these Amblyseius species, are reasonably priced, and you can distribute the sachets throughout your grow area. And the density that you put them out there is going to depend on the species of Amblyseius you use and the size of the sachets, and consult with the beneficial mite supplier to determine the number of sachets per unit area for your situations. And as I said before, those sachets contain food for the predatory mites, and they will keep hatching out over a couple of weeks. So I recommend that we spray circadian sunrise at 1 ounce per gallon at the following frequency. So when the temperature is, mild, averaging 70 degrees, you're probably okay spraying every 2 to 3 weeks if it's, at that or below. But keep monitoring. If you do see any russet mites, I would go to a weekly basis. But if you're not seeing them, you're just doing prevention, every 2 to 3 weeks should be fine. Once you get to 70 to the low 80s, you should be spraying every 7 to 10 days, even if you're not seeing the pest. But if you've had a history of russet mites, you should be doing this. Keep in mind the circadian sunrise is not harmful to your plants, especially at that rate. Your plants are going to actually like it. So even if you have no russet mites, you're not, it's not a bad thing to do. It's actually a good thing to do. Once the temperature gets between 80 and 100 degrees, you're going to need to be spraying weekly. And don't spray while it's 100 degrees. You should let spray early in the morning when it's cooler. Plants are under less water stress. The sunlight intensity is very low. That would be the best time of the day to spray. Once the temperatures are, over the hundreds, that's going to be killing off that first nymphal stage, and that should break the disease cycle. And if you've been doing the other sprays prior to that, you really shouldn't have much of any of a russet mite population anyways. And at that point, I wouldn't spray, and unless you were then getting spider mites or something else. So now that's a preventative program. But if you do come up with a flare up, or you come into a situation where you haven't been doing a preventative program, and now you're seeing those smaller leaves, those bronze leaves, the up curled leaves, and you look at it with your hand lens and you're seeing those little clear russet mites, then you better be concerned. You better act right away, because it can get out of hand in a hurry. So in that situation, I would start off on day one, spray circadian sunrise at 2 to 3 ounces per gallon, combined with all phase at 10 grams per gallon. Do a very thorough spray. Take your time, make sure you cover all the surfaces. The next day, don't do anything. The day after that, you can either hit it with circadian sunrise again at the same rate, or go with the long shadow at 1/2. I would probably go with 1/2 ounce per gallon. Then I would wait a day and I wouldn't spray again. And then on the 5th day, I'd do another application of circadian sunrise at 2 to 3 ounces per gallon. So what this is going to do, this is going to get those eggs at hadn't hatched out on day one, that may then have hatched out on day two, we're going to kill those nymphs off. We're going to kill the nymphs that hatch out on day 3 and day 4 and day 5. And if the temperature is cooler, it can take longer for those eggs to hatch, but then the nymphs are going to take longer to develop. So, we should be able to take out all the russet mites that we're able to cover with this schedule. And in feedback we've gotten from growers, this has been working very well. We've had several people tell us they'd be 100% free if they weren't continually bringing in new plants into their facilities. But we see this and as it makes sense, and we know that it kills the pest from our tests that we've done with pesticides, evaluating them for russet mite control. Probably the biggest problem is getting it on the pest. And so the first round, if you're didn't get quite as good of a kill as you thought maybe you should have, add a good surfactant to the sprays. There are these silica-based surfactants that really break the surface tension of water, which helps get the sprays into tight areas where russet mites hide. I really like the products High Wet and Silwet L77. Those are 2 I've used and gotten very good results. When we've had all phase evaluated at the Cal Poly Strawberry Center for controlling powdery mildew, when it was combined with High Wet, nothing beat it for controlling powdery mildew. It was awesome, the results. So you can add a surfactant with these products and you can even get a better kill.